Hey everyone, welcome to the Redmen TV. This is the Liverpool Transfer Podcast. I'm Steve Hall, delighted to be joined by Andy and by Luke for this one. And we're going to have a chat about all the latest Liverpool transfer news. We've got a confirmed sign and we've got some rumours, some potential departures, a little bit of conspiracy theory surrounding a certain ginormous Swedish striker as well. We're going to get into it all as we do. Please use the live chat function on YouTube. Get involved with the show. If you're one of our Redmen Plus Legend subscribers, head over to Discord right now and you can get your thoughts and comments in and we'll bring them up throughout the course of the show. Gentlemen, thank you for giving up your mornings to come and join us. I hope you're not missing open training too much, which is what Liverpool are currently doing. Wanted to get your thoughts straight away. Then last night, Luke, I'll start with you, mate. Liverpool very low-key announced the arrival of Hugo Ekitike. I mean, mainly because all the media team are in Hong Kong, where he's on his way to. So I'm sure there'll be more to come from that one. But yes, Liverpool do have their striker target. What are your thoughts on the whole deal and how do you think he's going to get on?
Yeah, I think the thoughts on the deal, I think it's a tough one, isn't it? I personally, when I seen everything come through for Fabrizio Romano announcing it, I was a little bit sceptical. I was a bit like, it's a lot of money that for somebody who's a bit unproven, not captain international level. Is he going to be the man for us? And you sort of dig a bit deeper, don't you? Look at the stats, look at the reasons why. And I think I've sort of now convinced myself that Liverpool Football Club's transfer committee know a lot more than I do. And I probably made quite a good decision here. Because he was on the radar of a couple of teams last season as well. And he was actually Newcastle's target a very long time ago before they got Isak rumoured. So there's going to be a player there. They obviously seen something that we haven't seen yet, or they think there's more to him. He's definitely the unfinished product, and I think that's what my fear was at first. We're buying someone who needs a polish again. When we bought Nunez, it's gone a bit west, hasn't it? Let's be honest, it hasn't gone how we expected it to go. But he seems to think we can get it right this time, and he's definitely a different sort of player. He's proven in the link-up play. We'll probably get on to talk about it a little bit more, but yeah, I'm at peace with it now. I can see why he's done it. I'm just hoping the price tag is not going to land on his head a little bit and he's going to be play on his mind, because we've seen that play into players, but I think we're going to be fine now. And
on him as well, he did turn down plenty of other moves. Obviously, Newcastle were pretty close by all accounts. Man United came in late, Chelsea came in late. He had his eyes firmly set on the champions, which for a young player, fair play, there's obviously a space in the team that he thinks he can go and get, but that does show something about him that he could go to X, Y and Z, maybe a little bit less. I mean, the pressure at those clubs is still big, but he wanted to come here, which is always a positive.
Definitely, it's a mark in his mentality, I think. For a fairly young player, actually relatively inexperienced with regards to top flight experience. He's less than 100 games in the top flight for top 5 leagues in Europe. We know that ideally Liverpool want between 150 and 170, so there is a little bit of a risk in that sense. It is an exciting risk for me. It's always exciting when you sign a centre forward. They're a lot more exciting than sort of defensive for the midfield players. So yeah, I'm very excited for it. I think in terms of the Nunez comparison, it's understandable and I get it, but I think the main thing for me is that actually sort of Klopp and Pep Blinders had a little bit more control around that time, and a lot of the nerds and the stats guys who did their due diligence on these players and who obviously watched them a lot more than the managers do. They were out of the club at the time. They've come back in now, so I'm fairly confident that any signing we make is based on a significant body of evidence that it's going to work. And that's why I just trust whichever signings they make in this window.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Like I say, it's always good as well. Then Andy Stickler, they got it done relatively soon. He will probably not take part in that AC Milan game. It's probably going to come too quickly for him this weekend. I mean, he might. You never know. He's apparently going to arrive there today. So there's a chance, but if not, he'll get a good week of pre-season. He might feature in that Japan game, and he's still a few weeks away from the season. It wouldn't have been fair on the lads to come in and put all this pressure on him. And if this had run on for like another 3 or 4 weeks, for example, and a little bit of a Ryan Gravenberch situation where he didn't get any of that pre-season, because like Luke said, he isn't the finished article. There is some work to be done. He's going to have to learn all like the link-ups with Mo Salah and what his job's going to be. So important that he got this one done relatively early.
Definitely, and there's still 3 or 4 weeks before the season starts. You mentioned the 2 games in the Far East. We've also got the Charity Shield. We've also got the Bilbao game at home, or 2 games actually. So there's plenty of low-pressure games for him to ease himself in before he's possibly thrown into that Bournemouth game. Who knows where the squad will be at by then. Who knows if there'll be other players in the front line by then as well. But in terms of the pressure, for me, I think what you say to him is, listen, last season, quite a lot of the time, for various different reasons, with our number 9 options, we essentially didn't play one. A lot of the time, Luis Diaz was playing there. I think at City, we line up with Szoboszlai and Jones as 2 10s, and we see that a couple of times, maybe at Brighton in the League Cup. And you say to him, listen, go out, enjoy yourself, do what you can. But if there is a situation, which there might well be with a young player, where he ends up sort of 10 games without a goal and missing loads of chances, we'll just pull you out of the firing line, and we'll go back to what we did last year, and this worked to the extent which we won the league by 10 points. So I think that mitigates the pressure on him, and he can just go and play his football. And if it's going a bit rough for him, no problem, take you out and we'll put you back in when you're ready. Absolutely.
On who might come in if they took him out, then it was notable. I'm going to bring this tweet up here. When a lot of the Liverpool-based journalists who didn't go on the tour, they obviously reported it because it was a normal time here. It was like stupid o'clock in the morning in Hong Kong. Ian Doyle of The Echo being one of them. He said, Ekitike, if he was the first half forward, he can play number 9, but also out wide or as a second striker. He'll join up with his new teammates in Hong Kong. It then goes on to say, Liverpool are still monitoring developments of Alexander Isak at Newcastle. Paul Joyce wrote something similar in his piece on the Times. Of course, I can't bring that one up, paywall and all that kind of stuff. As it stands this morning at 9 a.m, Craig Hope of the Daily Mail, obviously very well connected in terms of Newcastle. Alexander Isak has not travelled with Newcastle to Singapore. The striker is still nursing a minor thigh injury. This comes off the back, for more context, of Ben Jacobs reporting the other day that he'd had a scan and it was clear. And I think people expected him maybe to be going on the trip. So that's where we're at with this one. That is obviously set tongues are wagging. Luke, I'll start with you. I even titled the podcast, so you're telling me there's a chance. Like, there are 2 ways to look at this. Newcastle might be absolutely spot on, and they haven't taken their star player, one of their biggest names, on a marketing trip to a massive part of the country, of the world, where they're trying to drum up more commercial interest. That might be true. And maybe this minor thigh injury prevents him from getting on an airplane. That could be true as well. There's also a case that he's gone full Coutinho. And we've been in that situation. We know exactly what this is like. Players are not wanting to play, back injuries and all that kind of stuff. So, do you believe Newcastle? Are you smelling a bit of smoke and is there fire to it? Or are you just thinking he's injured, there's no chance that he's ever signing for Liverpool?
I think he's pulled the Coutinho playbook, hasn't he? He's pulled it out and gone, yeah, I'm going to do that one there. He was running the other day, wasn't he? Training, seen the videos of him. That's return to playing it. That's what you do right at the end. If you're nursing a man in an injury, you're doing lots of loading and stuff like that, lots of gym work and sort of giving yourself a week or 2. But he's out running, so 2 and 2 don't go together, in my opinion anyway. I generally think his head's gone. I reckon he's looking at this going, I could have been at the Champions, they've spent loads of money now. I feel like the opportunities now might be missed in his head. Liverpool still monitoring the situation where you might still go in, might still look at, putting a bid in there, trying to unsettle him a bit more, see what goes on. But in my opinion, it's probably a bit too late now. Liverpool have spent 60 million plus add-ons to bring Ekitike in. We then got to go drop 120, 140 to bring Isak out to Newcastle. I think the opportunity's gone, but it doesn't mean that his head's still not gone. He might be spinning there. I think there might be other moves at play for him. He might have other stuff going on. Other clubs might come in and smell a bit of interest, but I do think the opportunity's passed. However, Liverpool, we're playing FIFA at the minute, aren't we? The amount of players we're bringing in, we're doing stuff we've never seen before. We've moaned about there being no investment over the last couple of years, and now suddenly we've got this massive war chest. It's definitely not totally out of the realm of possibilities that Liverpool go and chuck in a bid, try and unsettle him a bit further, and then maybe knock a few million off the price tag and drop maybe 110 on him and see what happens.
I suppose, Andy, it's worth mentioning, like, when these briefs, I'm guessing briefs to say this, but when a few of the journalists tend to have the similar lines in a story, that tends to be coming from somewhere. And the fact that they all dropped the Ekitike versatile players a few positions, and the fact that Isak interest is still there, my guess is Liverpool still have the money. And obviously, we have spent a lot of money this year. It's around £300 million, give or take. I'm not doing the rough maths now, but we know there are plenty of sales to come. I was working out the other day, there's a list of about 8 or 9 players who could feasibly leave Liverpool this summer between now and the start of the season, starting with Diaz and Nunez, going all the way down to the likes of some of the young players like Ben Doak. There could be loans on the cards. They already got a little bit of money in the past as well. Trent Alexander-Arnold left, etc. Kevin Kelleher left. So we feel like the finances could be there. I fail to see a world where these lines are being put out willy-nilly. There's got to be something there from Liverpool's side, and now you're adding the fact that he's not going on pre-season. That's why a lot of people in the chat and stuff start connecting dots, I suppose.
There's no doubt whatsoever in my mind that Liverpool have the money to do this if they want to. I think I read a piece of financial analysis the other day which said that Liverpool could still spend another 250 million this summer before they're even touching any PSR issues.
And that's without sales, isn't it?
And that's without sales. So I think the fact that obviously in the last 3 transfer windows we've done next to nothing, it means that we can do this summer. I'd just be a little bit surprised for a couple of different reasons. Firstly, I think there are other priorities in the squad. I'm not sure if we're going to come on to talk about centre-half, but that's certainly one that we need more urgently for me than another, not necessarily another forward player, but certainly another number 9. And from my understanding of Ekitike, and I understand that some journalists have briefed that he can play on the left, he can play second striker. I thought Ekitike did some work on the left, but from a centre forward position, a bit like sort of Thierry Henry. So from what I can see, and I may be completely wrong, and I would love to be proven completely wrong, I think if you were to bring Alexander Isak in, you'd be playing one of the two. And if Isak stays fit, which is a separate story and another very big if, then Ekitike's he's not playing any more than sort of 7 or 8 Premier League games. He's probably not starting any Champions League games aside from, I don't know, Bologna at home in the league phase when it's a little bit of a dead rubber and we're going to win it anyway. So I don't really understand why we would do that. But that said, we are putting something out. We're not doing it for no reason.
Is it not? Sorry,
you're going. Yeah.
Is it not a world where just throwing ideas out there? Liverpool move Luis Diaz on, we don't replace him. Obviously, he doesn't really play out on the left wing, but he definitely could be deployed over there, and he's rotating with Cody Gakpo. That could be in the realm of possibilities. Yeah.
Like I say, I don't know loads about Ekitike, and he may well be able to do that. That was just my understanding. It might have been an ignorant understanding. I think, yeah, for me, if Diaz goes, I will need to do another somewhere, but I would have thought it might have been in a different position or someone who could have played across many different positions.
It's also worth mentioning, with the horrendous news about Diogo Jota, they're going to sell Darwin Nunez. Liverpool haven't got any forwards. If that is the case, like just central strikers, you probably do need to. Well, you definitely need to. Yeah. It would be unfair on Hugo Ekitike or Alexander Isak to say you have to play 60 games up front. That just isn't going to happen. That versatile forward might come into play where you do other bits as well.
But the difference for me there from last season was like Luis Diaz might have been your second one. So you had your out and out number 9, which was either Jota or Nunez, and then Diaz was your second one. But Diaz was still getting his games out in the left as well.
Yeah.
You know, whereas for this one, if it is one or the other, then you know somebody's going to end up disappointed with the number of starts they're getting at the end of the season.
I think also it's worth mentioning, like Liverpool couldn't just. There's no Newcastle keeps saying Alex Isak isn't for sale. By the way, it's worth mentioning. Even if he does, he might be kicking off. He might just not be for sale. Liverpool didn't sell for Coutinho when he kicked off. It took them another window before they did. So Liverpool couldn't just afford to it. Maybe they've gone as well. We need to push the button on Ekitike as well. Get ourselves as many good players. There will be conversations around the non-homegrown stuff because the limit on that. They're going to have to make sales if they do this one. But it just feels like the injury stuff for me, Andy, I'll come back to you. Alexis McAllister's injured and he's in pre-season and he's at open training right now doing work to the side on his own. You know, Alisson Becker was injured, didn't play in any of the friendlies so far, had a minor issue. He's on the tour. You know, the only one Liverpool didn't take because of a apparent injury was Federico Chiesa, and again, people are linking that maybe to the fact that he could be potentially getting a move. By all accounts, and I haven't read too much, Newcastle have a couple of other injured players who may have gone on the tour as well. It just feels like, again, maybe reading too much into it, it feels like he might have this might be a bit of a kick-off happening here for him.
Oh, there's no doubt in my mind that's what it is. I don't buy this injury for 1 second. It's interesting he's gone for the thigh rather than the back, because the back, I think, from memory for the Coutinho situation, and you'll be able to tell me more working in a hospital, Luke, but I think the back's one of the injuries that you can't actually prove.
No,
you can't actually scan it.
It's a bit like, oh, you're in a bit of pain. We'll see what we can do, but we can't really put a pinpoint on it.
It doesn't show on scans, like,
My thing with it is, I do think Newcastle have a little bit more leverage in this situation than some people are giving it credit for. Yes, Alexander Isak has the power to kick off and maybe go on strike for a little bit, but I can't see him come the start of the season sort of going on strike for 6 months. Most unhappy players eventually do get their head down and come to some sort of an agreement with a club where, okay, next window if this big comes in, blah blah blah. I mean, Newcastle are in the Champions League and he has 3 years left in his deal, and we have to understand that there's another club with other ambitions involved here, not just us. They will be saying, perhaps naively, I think naively, that we can go for the Champions League next season, we can win the Premier League, we can go for a title challenge. You know, I think they finished third last year, just shy of Arsenal. So they will want to keep their best player. They've had an absolute nightmare in the transfer window themselves, so they definitely won't want to sell up. And as much as you don't ideally want an unhappy player in your books, you look at the last couple of examples from Liverpool. Coutinho was unhappy, he gave us another 6 months. Suarez was unhappy, he gave us another year. They probably produced their best football in their unhappy period. So I do think that there's legs to this. I do think there's more twists and turns, but I don't think that Newcastle's hands are tied in the way that some people are suggesting.
Absolutely, they can just say, no, you're not going, mate, and is what it is. The final one on the Isak stuff I'll come to, Luke, is reportedly, again, I think it was Alex Crook, Ben Jacobs, both discussing it on TalkSport, I think I'm right in saying, apologies if I got that wrong, was like, his wages, he's asking for like 300 grand a week or close to it, because Newcastle have put a valuation of 150 million pounds on him, and he's gone basically long and short of it. Well, and his agent, if he's a 150 million pound player and they're offering him 150,000 pound a week, those two things don't compute, because players at Liverpool, who Liverpool signed for 40, 50, 60 million pounds, come in on around 150,000 pound a week. The wage thing might be at play here as well, and that always bothers footballers. They just, again, £150,000 a week, you're an extremely wealthy man and you'll be absolutely fine. But there's a gravitas and a status to being, well, I need to be paid what the other £150 million value players are on. Your Miles, for etc., who's got a massive new contract. There's probably a little bit of this at play here as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think with the player sales that you spoke about before, Steve, we'd probably be using one of the player sales to sort of pay the wages if we were going to bring him in, and he's on the £300,000 a week. But I think the wage structure is totally out the window anyway. With the new deals of Van Dijk and Salah at the end of the season, I think we had that structure in place. We weren't paying people too much. It was a set sort of recommendation, and I think that's just been thrown out the window now completely. And I think it's because Liverpool are probably growing commercially a lot at the moment. And people say, you know, Man United are the biggest commercial club sort of in the whole of Asia, and that's because they tapped into that market first. You know, when the Premier League sort of got them big deals way before I was born, really. They were sort of the first one to tap into that market, and Liverpool have been tapping over into the overseas market now for about ever since we got FSG. I think now commercially we're huge. You know what I mean? I think are we the second most valuable club at the moment? I know City are above us, aren't they? Because they've got some dodgy deals going on, if you ask me. Some over-evaluated sponsorships. But I think there's a bit more money there to sort of, we can play about with the wage structure, and we'll probably see it sort of be reset in a way. And I think they're probably looking at sort of like Luis Diaz, for example, who was saying he's going to leave. I think Luis Diaz is going to leave because we're looking at him going, we don't want to give him the wage jump. So there's going to be money there, which would have been reserved for Luis Diaz, you would imagine. Konate's probably not going to get a wage jump. He looks like there's rumours that he might be leaving us as well, isn't it, at the end of his deal. So I think there's money there to play with and stuff to be moved about. And obviously with the player sales, I think we could make it work.
Finally, Andy, then, the question will be, and I'll ask you a second as well as things, same thing, rather, Luke, is like, can Liverpool get this done? Do we think they can get this done? Because the Newcastle are adamant he's not for sale. They don't want to be selling their best player. They've had, like you said before, a really tough time in the transfer window. They signed a good player. I think Anthony Elanga's a good player, but they've missed out on Pedro, Mbuemo, Ekitike. The list goes on. I think there's like 5 or 6 names who just haven't been able to get over the line. Selling Isak when you're this new ownership, this new project of trying to build Newcastle up into a title challenger, that's a tough pill to swallow sometimes. It's going to be a really difficult deal to get done. Do you think Liverpool can get it done?
I think if they really, really want to, they can. I'm not sure how much money is left in the kitty this summer. I think they'll be looking at doing certain bits at centre half and potentially even another forward aside from him. Not sure how much that's going to cost, and not sure how much they will have left for the Isak deal, and again, not sure how much they're going to bring in either. We might struggle to shift a Nunez on because we've obviously priced Napoli out of it. What's to say that somebody else is going to come in and pay the, let's say, around 50 million that we've got? But I think if Liverpool want to make it work, they will make it work. And I also don't believe they'd be putting out what they're putting out without having a serious interest in still doing it. I don't think they're just doing it to unsettle him just for the sake of it, because I don't think Newcastle are going to be one of our direct rivals next season. So I don't think you just need to unsettle a player for the sake of it. So I think there is interest in getting it done. Maybe it's planting a seed for January or next summer when there's maybe an agreement in place. I'm not sure. My instinct tells me that he stays at Newcastle for another year, and they sit him down and they say, listen, you've got 3 years left in your deal, mate. Come on a second here. What are you, not coming on tour with us? What are you doing? We're in the Champions League. You've at least 8 more games. We're going to go for a big title push this year. We're going to bring this player in, this player in. This is the plan. If by the end of this season we're not matching your ambitions, fine, we'll let you go for this much. And I think, you know, most 99% of players will at that point get the head down and trust the sort of gentleman's agreement that's in there. So I don't think it gets done this summer is my instinct.
What do you think?
No, I don't think it gets done this summer either. I would like to see it gets done further down the line. I do agree with that. I think maybe we are planting the seed maybe for next year. But I just think if we spend too much, the net spend's definitely got to come down a lot if we're going to make this big deal. And Newcastle are pretty firm. I think if they were going to sell him, they probably would have done it at the start of the window because then they've got X amount of time to replace him and embed a new forward. Because when they do sell him, they will spend big. They will bring in another big player to replace him. They're not just going to put Callum Wilson up front. Is he even still there?
I think he's just
gone,
left,
isn't he? He just left.
Yeah, Jan Wies is the one that they're being linked.
He's a good
now.
player, actually.
Yeah. I think there might be something in this. I'm gonna hold out. You're telling me there's a chance. You're telling me there's a chance. I'm gonna keep my eye on it. Is what I'm at one. There's a few. There's mixed in the chat as well. Some people saying it looks like it might happen, but then Bada Bing, nice name, says not a chance, and Peter Pan says no chance. But then other people are saying yes, he's coming as well. So mixed reviews in terms of can Liverpool sign Alexander Isak.
Sometimes it's nice though when it's just living in a little bit of nice delusion sometimes, I think.
I go back to the fact that I do take something from the journalists because I know how this game works. I know how they work and what's being fed and where it's coming from and all that kind of stuff. That isn't just, there's no point tweeting that unless someone's dropped you or something, you know, because you're just, what's the point? You're announcing Hugo Ekitike, you don't need to talk about Alexander Isak, it doesn't matter.
And the other thing is, if we were to have sat here a month ago and said in the next month Liverpool have signed 5 or 6 players, if you include Freddie Woodman, which I don't really, and they will have spent £250 million, again, everything in the chat and probably what we'd have been saying as well would have been no chance.
Yeah. It's more,
I'm already surprised this summer, so what's to say they can't do it again?
I'm taking a lot from the sales. There's a lot of sales to be done. You know, between Nunez, Diaz, Elliott, straight away there, maybe Chiesa, you could be recouping somewhere close to £150 million at least by selling.
Doak and Morton as well.
If Liverpool want what they get what they want for Luis Diaz, that could be £70 or £80 million straight away. So I'm going to live in it. I'm going to say there's a chance. We'll see how it all pans out in due course. We'll be taking a break very, very shortly. Before we do, I do want to kind of speak about, because centre halves, then we'll talk about Mark Gahey first, then after the break we'll talk about Luis Diaz and the Rodrygo situation. So the latest on Mark Gahey, I'll come to you first, Luke. Andy Hunter in The Guardian said that Liverpool remain keen on Crystal Palace defender Mark Gahey, and then Ben Jacobs said Palace have informed Gahey that their preference is to sell him now, rather than letting him run out of contract for obvious reasons. It makes sense there. One, he said the move to Anfield does look the most likely this summer. However, Liverpool believe Palace's asking price at this moment in time is still a bit too high. So that's where we're at with Mark Gahey. Liverpool are in open training right now as we speak, and they've got 3 senior centre halves on them, with them Van Dijk, Konate and Gomez. The future of at least 2 of those is uncertain, and Virgil van Dijk's got 2 years left on his contract. This season, in pre-season rather, I've seen Andy Robertson, Kostas Tsimikas, Wataru Endo and Lucas Stevenson all play centre half. That isn't viable. Liverpool obviously need to get themselves a centre back going into this season. So do you think, regardless of what's going on next with Isak and all that kind of stuff, do you think centre half might be next on Richard Hughes' hit list? There's one that he needs to get done relatively soon, and if so, Mark Gahey could be the man. Yeah,
I would like it to be, and obviously straight away he hits that homegrown quota, doesn't he, where we need a few more homegrown players. But I think there is a bit more of play with the Konate stuff going on. I think if Palace want to get rid of him and get a bit of money for him, they are going to have to lower the asking price, or it's going to be a case of they're going to keep hold of him until January and he's going to go for a lot less. So I'd say they're the stuff at factor for Crystal Palace. With Liverpool, I think with the Konate deal sort of coming at the end of the year, if we could pick Gahey up for free next year for nothing, so that would work really well. However, if we get to the position in January where we're pushing on all fronts, somebody's picked up an injury, we're going to need a centre-back. I know the links to Giovanni Leone at Parma are there, but however, he's not going to be good enough, is he? He's just a young lad who hasn't really played too much. We need someone a bit more proven, and Gahey will be the main target. If Liverpool bring it in, we're going to have to see the player sales, aren't we? What we've been talking about already. We're going to have to see, someone come in and pay the money for Diaz, someone come in and pay the money for Nunez, possibly the exit of Harvey Elliott. We're going to have to see them sort of things happen to maybe spend a little bit more money. But yeah, he would be my number one target. I know there's a bit of question marks around the height of him and the stats around his aerial duels and stuff like that. But I think he's sort of playing in a different system, isn't he? And they're sort of playing a low block counter, and he's facing a lot more deeper balls into the box. You know what I mean? And he's going to be crowded out. Stuff at the back post going on for him. that's probably playing into them numbers quite a lot. If he's defended on the front foot on the halfway line and defending early crosses, sorted around the penalty spot, you'd expect that he's going to have a bit more success there. And you put anyone next to Virgil van Dijk, they look absolutely boss. So he's only going to grow in his game. The numbers don't concern me. I know that's the Twitter stuff going around, isn't it? People are worried about the aerial numbers, but I think the numbers will just go away essentially when he joins our back line and plays a different system. He's my number one target.
Andy, on the centre-back thing, I'm quite surprised actually that Liverpool... I just presumed that when Gerald Kwanzaa was sold, that Liverpool would have had something just like a couple of days later or a day or two later, maybe it would have all been boxed off and someone signed. And if it's like that isn't the case, maybe they're just waiting for the right moment. Maybe they are in negotiations, like I say. Ben Jacobs reporting that Liverpool maybe trying to get Palace's to lower Crystal Palace rather to lower the price, but I was quite shocked that it wasn't immediate that Kwanzaa was going and then a centre half coming.
I think so as well, which makes me think to an extent the Kwanzaa deal was a little bit opportunistic for Liverpool. There was a bid came in for 35-40 million. Is it rising to 40 from Leverkusen? And I think after the season Kwanzaa had last year, Liverpool were maybe a little bit surprised that bid came in.
Yeah.
It's an opportunity, obviously, with an academy player to report a profit of 35-40 million in the books, which, like we say, Liverpool are a very well-run, sustainable club, and that's not to be sniffed at doing a deal like that at that time. We've got the buyback in as well. So there was reports coming out, I think it was from James Pearce in March or April last year, that Kwanzaa is absolutely not for sale, and I've no doubt that actually was Liverpool's stance at the time. It was just a surprising bid came in. It did come in, we have sold him, and I think last year we were maybe one short anyway, given Gomez's injury problems, given Kwanzaa's form, and given Konate's previous injury problems, although he did all right in stand fit last year, didn't he? So I thought we were one short anyway, so now we definitely need to get at least one in. And I think you're looking at, if you're getting two in, you probably want a sure bet. I say a sure bet, I know there are question marks, but like Mark Gay, who's an England international, he's the right age, he's Premier League proven. You're getting him for around 30-35 million, but you're actually probably buying a 50-60 million pound player. The reason for that price is because he's in the last year of his contract. I understand the aerial concerns, but I completely agree with what you said on those looks. So, I don't watch Crystal Palace and see him getting out jumped for goals for the oppositions from headers every week either. So, this is the other thing about aerial battles. It's not always about, if you've played centre half, it's not always about actually winning the header. It's about doing enough to put the opposition striker off to not get a clean header on it. So there's all sorts of caveats there. And I think maybe the other one you want to do, whether it is Giovanni Leone, if I got that right?
Yeah, it's Palmer. He's 19, isn't he?
Is it Cresswell, the lad at Leeds, was linked? Sorry, from Toulouse. Toulouse lad was linked yesterday again. The reporting is, Andy, I think they want to see a striker, a centre defender, and maybe a young one.
Yeah.
Lenny Yoro was linked, Levi Colwell, etc., Dean Huijsen. They want someone who's come bold to take over. Yeah, they've been in this market for a while. That might be your two that you get. You might get a gay and a young lad.
That's exactly what I would have. I would have a safe bet, and I would have a young lad coming through, because without Kwanzaa now, we've got Van Dijk, who's in his 30s. Gomez, is he in his 30s yet, or he's certainly touching it? Konate, okay, he's still fairly young, but he's very much first choice, and we want him in his peak years now.
Gomez is 28, by the way.
Oh, is he? Yeah. Well, okay. Sorry, Joe.
Been here a while, 10 years, like testimonial.
And then going forward from that, you've now lost your up and coming project of a centre half in Kwanzaa, so you do want a bit of succession planning there. And if we're bringing a player like Leone, and maybe he goes out on loan, maybe he plays a few League Cup, a little bit in Europe, not sure, but you bring him through, and that's your next big thing, because you have to be prepared for the idea that Van Dijk may fall off a cliff at some point. I don't think he will. Konate might go. Gomez's body might give up on him completely. Who knows? All those things could happen, but I think you ideally want to do one safe bet and one sure one coming through. One young one coming through. And you're right, the situation at the moment, you look at who's played in pre-season, and you look at if we go into the Premier League season with what we have right now, in no particular order, your 4th, 5th and 6th choice are Robertson, Endo and Stevenson.
That's what I was thinking.
That just leaves us short, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. But do you reckon Liverpool could make it to January? If we're talking depth chart wise, and we're talking Endo plays centre back, Robbo plays centre back, Costa Simicast doesn't leave, so he's playing left back underneath Kerkez. Is there a way where Liverpool can get to January with that squad, given Van Dijk doesn't get injured, because then Everton. I
think it's a massive risk, Luke. It's a huge.
But I'm just thinking
risk.
The price tag for Gay in January, if Palace are really keen on trying to cash in on him, Liverpool are going to save a bit of money there.
Yeah. Here's a question for you: if we're to do one more incoming this summer, No more outcomes, one more income, and it's either Gahey or Isak.
Isak.
You take Isak for the fun, don't you? And also, it's definitely the wrong decision. It's definitely the wrong call.
He's a world-class player. And I think I would fudge my way, and I would have Wataru Endo practicing a centre-half for the entire pre-season. And say,
where he has actually played most of his career.
Your fourth choice centre-half for a while, mate. You're not getting anywhere near this midfield. If you get on what we've got, then I'd risk it for that. But I
don't get to do another centre-half. That's you're going with Van Dijk and Konate. Yeah, and I suppose Gomez as well.
Yeah.
But you do it for the crack.
And we all win 6-4. every week. It is tough. But I do think, by the way, the Alex Isak thing is obviously an ongoing target, someone who Liverpool have just liked for a long time. I would like to hope that centre-half is next on the agenda. Mm-hmm. And then we'll see where the sales. I think after a centre-half, most of the transfers are replacing someone who might leave. Right, I think that's a big hole that they've still got in the squad that they need to fill, and then the rest of it might be, well, if Diaz goes, we'll do this, or if he goes, Kaiser goes, we'll do this, or whatever the rest of it feels. But yeah, I remember the season where we had no centre-halves, and it was horrific. It was really, really, really annoying. You know, with all due respect to Jordan Henderson and Fabinho, who did admirable jobs, and to Nat Phillips and Reece Williams, who had to come in at the end. I don't want to live that life. That isn't a Premier League winning life, is it? That's a struggling to get top four because your goalie has to score a goal life. And we've lived before. Right then, we are going to take that quick break that I mentioned earlier, after which we are going to be talking Luis Diaz and Rodrygo. Yeah, stick around, we'll be back in just a couple of minutes.
Hey everyone, it is a new month and the Reds are back in action, and to make it even better, we've got another amazing giveaway over on redmenplus.com. If you are already signed up as a Legend Tier subscriber, you are in the draw to win this beautiful Vladi Smaita, a hero of Istanbul in 2005, signed shirt. But also, if you are not already signed up, you can do so now or upgrade your existing subscription. You get loads of amazing benefits, including Discord access and discount off redmenmerch.com. And as I say, a chance to win this absolute beauty. Get over to redmenplus.com. Do it now.
Yes, welcome back. Become a Redmen legend. Win yourself a signed shirt. Why wouldn't you want to do that? Yeah, I'm sure you would. There's plenty more to come as well. I'm actually recording, spoiler alert, the August advert for our next competition, and it's another big name, another big piece of merchandise signed. So yeah, get yourselves involved. Thank you very much indeed to those who are already subscribed to Plus. You guys are the best. Right then, this is the Luis Diaz / Rodrygo section of the show, and these are both kind of going to intertwine together because I mentioned before, I think one is very much related to others and stuff like that. Let's start with Luis Diaz. The latest on him, obviously, is that he wants to leave. We know that. Bayern Munich, according to Ben Jacobs again, are set to make an improved offer for Luis Diaz, worth up around 80 million euros, around 70-odd million pound. And then Pipe Sierra, who's basically got a direct line to the Diaz household, it feels like. Colombian journalist said, Luis Diaz's request that Liverpool, they are not going to renew his contract as they promised him in May, will accept the offer from Bayern Munich that is about to arrive. Diaz wants to improve his conditions and seize the opportunity with the German team. This one is definitely money. We all know this is money related. Yeah. This is absolutely nothing to do with playing time because he played loads last year. He wants to be paid. He wants a new contract. Understandably, I can get it from his end. The reporting's been, Andy, I'll start with you. Liverpool want more. Liverpool were looking around 100 million euros. They used the Bruno Fernandes valuation from Saudi as an evaluation for Luis Diaz, is what the line has been always coming from Liverpool. But if Bayern Munich come and whack £70 million on the table, you mentioned before about that Kwanzaa deal and how Liverpool accepted it. 70 million feels like it might be enough to get Luis Diaz, regardless of what Liverpool are saying. Sorry,
it might well be. It might well be. From my perspective, I'm looking at what we've done this summer, and we've had to change the fullbacks, and we've done so. We have a new goalkeeper, a couple of new goalkeepers, well, 3 new goalkeepers actually in total coming in. The midfield's very stable. Obviously, with the tragic events and sales, we've had to bring in maybe 1 or 2 forwards as well, and that's quite a lot of upheaval from last season from a team which won the league by 10 points. So I understand that at 28, and given that he's maybe not quite the same explosive player post-injuries, I still think he's a fantastic player for the record, why a 70-80 million bid would be tempting. If I was Liverpool and I'm Arne Slot and I'm the transfer committee, I'm saying if we sell him for a year for 50 million, we take that 20-30 million pound hit. I'm fine with that to just get a little bit of stability in. This guy was our second top scorer last season. 17 goals, plays across multiple positions. You know, who's to say Ekitike doesn't, like I say, have 10 per games, and you just want to throw Diaz back in there, you know, as a little bit of a sure thing. And he can play on the left, he can play on the right. It's like, for a second top scorer who is so reliable and one of our better players, do we need to create more work for ourselves here?
No,
I'm not sure.
I'm with you, mate. I've always been. I'm a big Luis Diaz fan. I've always said so. It just depends, Luke. We don't know this yet because we haven't seen it really. How does this Liverpool regime and Arne Slot and cope with a player who doesn't want to be there? When a player makes it known that he wants to leave, that you know, it does change things. We know that. Like if your rallying cry is always we're all in, all together, one for all for one, we go to the well and all that kind of stuff. When a guy openly says he wants to go, that can change things. It might not. Andy mentioned earlier in the show, Coutinho and Diaz got their heads down and played very, very well. And by all accounts, Luis Diaz looks like the kind of guy who would do the same. But it is a wrinkle here that a lad who you don't want to give a new contract to wants to go, 70 million quid that you can reinvest elsewhere. There's a decision to be made. The last bid that come in was too low. It was never a decision. You weren't going to sell Luis Diaz for around 40, 50 million quid. That was just never going to happen. But 70, 80 around that range does give you a decision to make.
70, 80, I think I'd let him go. And that's purely the unsettling factor. You know, I don't think he would. I think he'd be the type to get his head down. I think we've seen it with Mane as well, really, didn't we? That sort of transpired after he left, that he actually wanted to go the year before. And then he got his head down and probably had one of his best seasons for Liverpool, especially when he come in and played the 9 as well. Love Sadio Mane. Anyway, Diaz being the versatile player he is, I think that's what Ekitike is going to come in for. If he's going to leave, we're looking at Ekitike. He's hoping he can play two or more positions, hopefully, across the whole front line. Ideally playing the 9, but if push comes to shove, we can move him out on the left. Nunez comes in, if we keep hold of him as well. Everything's sort of up in the air, isn't it? So it's one of them. I understand the contract and the money situation with Diaz, because he just wants to set his family up, isn't it? That's all it is. And if you go to Bayern Munich, you're probably looking at upwards of £200,000 a week for him. And he's reportedly on about 55 now. So it's going to be a huge jump, isn't it? And he's 28. I think people often think Diaz is a lot younger than he is, and it's just because he's bloomed a bit later in his career. But he probably needs to make that move now and sort of start putting the money away, really. He wants to set up his family for forever. I think Saudi we'd get more money from Saudi, wouldn't we? But I think the age is the factor. I don't think Luis Diaz would be willing to go to Saudi at 28. I think he still wants to play in Europe and still win big trophies, and then we might see him make that move in his career later down the line. But I'm all in and selling him, replacing him, and I know we've done a lot of work this summer. I get your point, and I usually am the one for, like, we don't need to change it too much with the league champions, but I just think now is the right time, and with the stuff going on in the market and Rodrygo possibly wanting out of Real Madrid, Liverpool are long admirers of Rodrygo. We tried, Michael Edwards tried to sign him back in 2020, didn't he, for $3 million, which would have been an absolute steal by the looks of it. But subsequently, Real Madrid come in and sort of scuppered that offer and picked them up. I'd love him to come in, and I think he might be looking at Liverpool thinking this is a great destination, and he's a lot younger than Luis Diaz. He's not 23?
24, yeah.
24. Yeah. So he come in, he's maybe got a little bit more of a higher ceiling as well, in my opinion. And, you know, Mo Salah's not getting any younger. There's a pathway here where he could come in and be our next big winger if we do get him. So
hasn't Piercy basically said that he's not on our radar?
I was wondering, let me give the updates in terms of the reporting around.
Sorry, Piercy's not my man. I called him Piercy. Never met him.
Big James, I have met him. I think he'll be fine with it. It's all good. If I know James, he's working hard on the tour and then he's partying hard at night as well. He's a man who doesn't need much sleep. Is James Pierce. But his tweet last night was that around the case there's been no talks, no interest. However, there were reports from Spain that suggested otherwise. We spoke to Luis Diaz. I'm very much not in Hong Kong. Dan spoke to Luis Diaz, and he said his sources in Spain have told him there is definite interest as well. Now, there's been no club-to-club talks, as apparently there's been a lot of chatting to the player, where's it at? So I feel like there's probably something there without it being direct in terms of... but James, you are right to say there are conflicting reports. James Pierce did report like Liverpool have got no interest. Having said that, he did say, Liverpool have had no bids for Luis Diaz, and he is training normally. It wouldn't be wise, I don't think, for Liverpool to put out there that they're looking at Luis Diaz replacements whilst also publicly stating that Luis Diaz isn't for sale. There's a lot of games and things here. That's fair, yeah. So we don't know. Is the honest truth on the Rodrygo stuff? A lot of it is coming from Spain, and again, it may be agent driven. I don't know. It feels like, though, if you are going to lose Luis Diaz, that's the type of player that you'd want in terms of at least a status of a player. You know, I mean, you're getting an international, young lad, decent money, good reputation, from a good club, played loads of games. You've got that sample size you're looking for, Andy. It's about as good as probably a replacement you're going to get in terms of level and stature of a player if they do decide to cash in on Luis Diaz.
Definitely, and we know that the people behind the scenes at Liverpool will have their analysis and their stats, and they will have a prediction as to where Luis Diaz's career goes from here on in, and it may be that they predict him to fall off a bit of a cliff next season, like they did, I guess, thinking back to sort of Jordan Henderson. Like, remember the whole debate around Henderson, where we all pretty much said we wanted to keep him because leadership qualities, etc., but Michael Edwards basically said, no, we can't give him a 5-year deal, and lo and behold, their prediction was right, because he did fall off a cliff the next season in terms of his form. Maybe they predict that for Diaz, and if they do, then they know, well, of course they know a lot more than me, and if Rodrygo's the one to come in, say 4 or 5 years older, you're probably breaking even, are you, with the transfer fees?
I would think so,
money
yeah,
in and
very similar, one in, one out.
One in, one out, so if they've seen that and they think it's a massive improvement, then yes, do it. You know, ultimately a significantly better player, which I'm not sure if he is, but if he is, then that overrides the idea of stability. With Diaz, I think £55,000, don't get me wrong, I'd take that in a year, never mind a week.
I think he's probably on more than
well, there's a lot of reports which suggest that, and a lot of reports which suggest that for the last 3 years, Nat Phillips has been on more money than him, which I get. Now, obviously, 55 grand a week is so much money, I can't even comprehend it, but when your mates are earning more and you feel like you're producing more for your workplace, then you will get a little bit jealous.
I think the latest report on Diaz was like, he's maybe on like 140. I think that's
I'm miles out then, aren't I?
No, because you're right, because that's what I'm saying. There's conflicting. There are loads of conflicting reports on that we don't know. And rightly so. We shouldn't really ever know what a football player's on, really. But there's loads of reports. But effectively, Pip's ears put out there. He wants the money. He wants the contract. And I get it. He's 28. This is your last chance, really, until you go to Saudi or your MLS move or your Qatari move at the very end, just to properly cash in. 28 is the last proper chance you've got to get in a big deal. The second you get 29, 30, teams can be a little bit more hesitant to go and give you that absolute bump. Unless you're like an absolute superstar and as good as Luis Diaz is, I don't think anyone classes him in that range of player.
If he's on 140, then I've more sympathy for, I've less sympathy for the position. If he's on 55, then I get it. And I understand they might not want to give him 1 year extension because that takes him to 31. What type of player is he at 31? You know, at that point, does he run his contract down because he's not going to get that money elsewhere? You don't want to get yourself in that situation, and Liverpool won't get themselves in that situation. But if there's a world in which we could just give him a little bit more money to keep him happy, and just have that stability for the next 2 years for a player who we know produces, who we know gets between 15 and 20 goals in a season if he stays fit, then I think you just stick with that given the upheaval we've had elsewhere in the squad.
No, it makes sense.
I think over the next week or two we'll see a bit more traction with it, I reckon, because I
think
one
way or the other.
Yeah, I think because Barcelona have now gone out and got Rashford. Barcelona, even though they were sort of interested, not interested, they were sort of playing a ball game. We were probably playing Barcelona and Bayern against each other. And now they've got to get Rashford. They're not going to be in the market for Luis Diaz at all, are they?
So, and Bayern aren't going to wait forever.
Yeah.
You got to remember, Bayern Munich are very much looking to retain the Bundesliga crown and go win the Champions League. That's the level of club they are. They're not going to hang around all the time because they need a winger.
No,
they know
definitely.
that. And the Musiala injury has only made things a bit more urgent in terms of their forward option. So, yeah, they're not going to wait forever. So you're right. It probably feels like this is one that resolved relatively quickly. By the time we next do a transfer podcast, we might have a definitive answer on it. I've got a couple of members chats and super chats to start rounding things up then. First of all, let's go back to Isak. The Teddy Bear Adventures, nice name, member says. He definitely wants to play for us. And Stuart Armstrong just says, sore thigh? Yeah, aye. Wink emoji. Lonatic says, I think we'll be happy waiting a year or January to get Isak. We'll be all right with Nunez as a backup this season if we can't sell him. Going back to the what would you get, Isak or Gahey thing, Vano says, we only have one striker and we actually have options of centre-back, so I would say striker is actually more a priority. I mean,
Darwin Nunez still plays for Liverpool, by the way.
Nunez is still here, so you see your point, but until he doesn't, he definitely still does. Gareth says, if we got Isak and Rodrygo, what a season it should be. I mean, you're starting to talk Galacticos level, which always goes right, as we know. never fails. And then Josh asks a question with his £5 super chat. Thanks very much, Josh. What is actually happening with Nunez, and what happens if we can't sell him? will we be in trouble with PSR? Good morning from my son lounge in Rhodes. Well, good morning, Josh. Hope you're having a good time in Rhodes.
Good morning from rainy Liverpool.
Good morning, Josh. I mean, nice one, Josh. Whatever. Hunts Cross is well nicer than Rhodes. The Nunez thing is fascinating because it's actually on my agenda, so Josh has done me a favour here a little bit. We've gone round in circles. We know we should say, etc. And it goes back to other points. People are just presuming he's not here. He's very much still here. He's on Liverpool's books. Napoli have moved on. It's Saudi or bust now for Darwin Nunez. This is a thing. Like they're not gonna. There's not too much they can do in terms of more so the non-homegrown stuff and maybe a little bit in PSR and wages stuff. And like Darwin Nunez is still here. If they're gonna have to sell him, it'll be interesting to see if Liverpool are willing to take a hit. How desperate are they just to get him out the football club? We don't really know that.
It doesn't sound as if PSR is an issue, although, further down the line, if we do on a massive spending spree and we can't get we've been on a massive spending spree, but if we continue on it and we can't get the money in from these players that we think we can get, then further down the line it may become a little bit of a thing, even if it's not right now. I don't think that'll be at the forefront of their minds. I still think they'll hold out for 45-50 million pounds, and there is a bit of an embarrassment factor there in the fact that we'd be taking a 40 million pound hit. You don't want to be selling them for certainly any less than that. I think in terms of what's better, is he an issue sort of around the place? We know that last season Arne Slot very publicly criticised his attitude after the Villa game, saying his head went, he wasn't trying after that. I don't think he started a game after that. All the stuff on the internet, deleting his socials and putting tweets out and deleting them. Did he, didn't he? All that nonsense I can't imagine is particularly enamouring to Jurgen Klopp or the club. Arne Slot or Jurgen Klopp, to be fair. So whether it's a case of having that extra body there for, like I say, Ekitike gets injured, maybe we want to go with an out-and-out number 9. Okay, we'll put Nunez there just because stylistically that's what we want. Whether that overrides all the other things I've said, I'm not entirely sure, but it just looks like Liverpool want to get him off the books. And I think if we keep him for another year, his value's only going to plummet because I don't think he's a very good footballer.
There's got to be a buyer for every sale. That's the thing, isn't it? And by all accounts, the one he wanted to go to moved on, whether it was money-wise, time-wise, or whatever. So you looking around now, the noises are Saudi Arabia, which is a viable option, of course, for every footballer, and he'll go and get well paid and stuff. That feels like a barrier at this moment in time. So again, he's on the pre-season tour. He's played in both friendlies that Liverpool have had. He scored 4 goals in 2 games in 2 halves, really, in said friendlies. But it goes back to everything, really. You can't just keep signing players. There's a limit to what you can have, and it does feel like we've all just expected Nunez to go, we've all expected Elliott to go, we've all expected Diaz to go, Tyler Morton. Actually, they're all still here. They're all on the tour. In fact, it was Kwanzaa who maybe nobody expected to go. Trent Alexander-Arnold, of course, but everyone did expect to go. The squad building process relies on people buying your players. Well, you can't just presume all this is going to happen. And someone's going to actually come and make that bid for Darwin Nunez for Liverpool to sell him.
Yeah, someone's got to come in and sort of cough the money up, haven't they, if we want to get rid of him. I think if we're going to talk about both sides of it, is his attitude factor that we've touched on there. It's just an extremely hard player to manage, isn't he? Yeah. He just needs to be nurtured, and he's erratic and personally just thinks he needs a new social media manager, to be honest. He just takes away all his logins. that would be plan 1 for me. But he just needs someone to just nurture him and be that manager for him, and I don't think Arne Slot's that manager. And that's where his head's at. Liverpool obviously could look at doing something internally and sort of sorting that out for him and getting him more support with that. But his head did go last season. However, I'm fully invested in the Darwin Nunez pre-season pump fake that he pulls every season, where he has this unreal pre-season campaign. He might play the first game, the second game, and he's boss, and then he just falls off a cliff. And I fall for it every single year. Quandre, brilliant in pre-season. Yeah, he does it every year, doesn't he? And the 4 goals at Leipzig the other year, I was like, oh my God, he's boss this Nunez fella, and he turns up and he's all right for 1 or 2 games, and then his head just falls off, gets himself a red card, and that's it. So let's see what happens. I think Nunez won't be leaving this summer, if I'm totally honest, and I think that's your point today. I think it's because there's no buyer. I think no one's going to cough up that sort of money for him, and Liverpool don't want to be publicly embarrassed, maybe taking an even bigger hit of 50-something million on selling Darwin Nunez. So I do think he maybe plays another season, and then we see what happens from there. It almost feels Balotelli-esque, doesn't it? When we bought Manuel Balotelli, and then he was awful, and then he went out on loan, and then he was on loan, and he was on the books for ages, and then he left. I think Liverpool might end up leaving themselves in this sort of scenario if Darwin Nunez doesn't come good. But I think with the minutes in pre-season, it's one or two things of it. It's either we're investing in Nunez for this season, and we're saying, all right, this is going to be your role. You might be on the bench a bit. Yeah, you're going to have to come off. You're going to have to prove yourself. And it's whether he's going to buy into that, or Arne Slot's going to start in most games and stick him in the shop window, Vandenberg, Carvalho-esque, or Carvalho, and say, you know, look at this player, he's boss. Why doesn't someone come and buy him? It's one of them, isn't it? So let's see what happens.
My prediction for it is, I agree with you that we'll struggle to find a buyer, but given the way the striker market is at the moment, in the sense that the best bet for Liverpool, if you ignore Alexander Isak, he's technically not on the market, really, is he? It's an astronomical bid, which is going to get him. You know, Liverpool have gone for Ekitike. That was the best option for Liverpool, I think, and even that is an exciting risk. Like I said earlier on, I'm not having Gyökeres, and you look at the other sort of strikers going. You got Rashford, Nicholas Jackson's been talked about. Šeško. It's not an amazing market for strikers at the moment, so I can see a world in which, I mean, teams will always need strikers. So Alex Ferguson used to say, like, we'll buy as many strikers as we can because you can always sell them, and you can always sell them. And I think in the last couple of days of the window, somebody's going to need a striker, and 50 million on Darwin Nunez, who was an 85 million player 3 years ago. Somebody's going to do it, I think.
Where's he go, though? Where's the realistic?
It's sad, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It probably is the only realistic one.
Yeah, I don't know what every club in Europe striker situation is, but it wouldn't surprise me if a top 5 club in Europe panics. And
well, again, if Sporting might need a striker, or you know, whether he goes there to Benfica, whatever, or like, you know, if Šeško does leave and then all of a sudden they need a striker, that, you know, it's
dominoes need to fall.
It's all circular, isn't it? But yeah, we'll wait and see. But yeah, ultimately if Liverpool are going to sign Alexander Isak, they're going to have to sell that one Nunez.
Yeah.
I don't think both things can. You can't have both of them. That just doesn't feel like it's feasible. Liverpool will have way too many players for a start, and just in terms of how many you can register. I think that's 17 non-home. Keep going back to this, and they're very close to that, like, already. I think they might be in and around it already. So there's plenty of moves to be done over the next couple of weeks or so. Right then, guys, thank you very much for coming in. Thanks all you guys for watching or listening to this latest episode of the Liverpool Transfer Podcast. I'm sure you're aware by now, Dan and Chloe are over in Hong Kong. There's loads of content coming from there, including today's open training session as well. So stick around on the YouTube channel, check out the social medias, all that good stuff. There's loads and loads to get your teeth into from Hong Kong, but from Liverpool, see you all soon.